Hello, friends and neighbors. This is DJ's Album Share, and I'm your host, DJ Roller. This is week 7, guys. This week I'm joined by a good friend of mine, Colin O'Brien. Colin and I have actually played some gigs here in Richmond together. He's a guitar player and a singer, and I think he's played bass in the past. And he picked a really cool album for me to listen to, the Wiyo's Twist. If you guys haven't had a chance, go check that album out, because we talk quite a bit about that album, and there's a couple different things on YouTube you can watch about it. I think there's a documentary on it, the Wiyo's Twist documentary. That's WIYOSTWIST, and that kind of gives you a little bit of background on their thought process going into making this album, which was really awesome. We got to check that out before we had our conversation, which helped quite a bit, and I suggest you guys do it as well. And then my album pick was Pokey Lafarge's self-titled album, Pokey Lafarge. And guys, I do appreciate all the support. If you are enjoying the show as much as we are, go ahead and like, subscribe, rate and review, all that good stuff. And I'm not going to hold you up anymore, guys. Enjoy the show. All right, Colin, what's up, dude?
Hey, how you doing, DJ?
Man, this is pretty awesome because up till now, you know, everybody's been giving me some really cool albums, but this has got to be one of the coolest albums I've ever listened to.
Yeah, man.
Front to back, the Wiyo's Twist. Is that how you say the Wiyo's?
The Wiyo's, yeah.
Yeah, the Wiyo's.
I believe it's named after some Irish gang of street kids from New York, which I didn't know at the time when I picked it. I'm not just trying to throw Irish shit at you. This is very American. So.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude. Well, the three guys, I think I should name them because we just watched the video on how they made it. Michael Farkas, Seth Charvins, and Teddy Weber. I think that's how you say it. Yeah. It's crazy that these three guys got together and did this album. I think they may have had a little help, obviously, with the producer and such. But, you know, this is a pretty wild album, dude. The concept of being like kind of the Wizard of Oz, right? Like loosely based on the Wizard of Oz, obviously, but to even set out to do that as a string band, and then like they said in the documentary that's on YouTube, you can check it out, the Wiyo's Twist documentary. They said like they don't care about genre, like that whole idea of being like you're mainly been performing as an acoustic string band, and you're going to attempt to do some crazy stuff like that.
Yeah, so like their back catalog before they did this album was like 3 dudes, 2 guitars, maybe a bass, and like a fucking washboard. And it's real like ragtime vaudeville. They dress the part, they look the part. They have songs like Rag, Mama Rag, and The Dying Crapshooters Blues, and all these really like old 1930s kind of jokey songs. And then they came out with this,
which is weird because
I don't know if I'd call it a masterpiece, but my God, it's an interesting
really
album. It's an interesting album.
The whole concept of this show, podcast, whatever, was my dad saying that my generation or our generation doesn't listen to albums. We listen to singles. You know what I mean? So it was pretty cool that like a lot of the people that I've had on are sending me like full compilation, like full albums that you listen to kind of as a whole piece of art. And that was like the really, really cool part about this album as a whole, like them being doing the Wizard of Oz thing. But
it's a fucking journey, man. This album.
It's a journey
like,
through every song.
Musically and lyrically.
They take you up and down and around the bend, man. And the one thing that it was so cool because I had this thought listening to it and then watching the documentary. They don't give a shit. Every instrument is on the table.
Yeah,
watching him twist the little toy box, that was something because I had the thought that was I heard like this you ever the Wild West movies where like wow wow wow,
yeah,
like that little they had that in
you can
that,
thank
whatever
Ennio
noise that
Morricone,
is.
an Italian, for that.
Yeah. But what they just like, all right, what instruments can we all play? Let's just use every single fucking one of them, including beatboxing, which is so crazy because they go from like string band. They have the killer harmonica player he's like a professor at some school or something, and then they have for the guitar player you have country, blues, jazz, like every genre he plays, and when he plays it, you're like, oh, that sounds kind of like this or that sounds kind of like that, you know. It was mind blowing.
Yeah, it's pretty fluid, especially with the main guitarist, he will go from really nice like jazzy finger picking to slide guitar to like fuck you rock and roll kind of stuff.
Blues,
there's a
blues
couple
stuff.
big time on the blues, but there's a couple of tracks on the album that break down for like 15 or 20 seconds where you're just like, this is hard rock. Like, and then it'll swap and it'll be like salsa for 2 minutes, then it will swap again and it'll be rockabilly, then it'll swap again and be like old-time ragtime stuff.
Honestly, like I had to just pick one of the genres to pick an album to go with it because they're all over the place. And that, honestly, that's jazz. To me personally, is like you can play like the jazz standards and you can play like the stuff that people have played for hundreds of years, right? But what I really enjoy about like acoustic jazz or even acoustic jazz musicians is they go, okay, cool, what are the genres? All right, I can play in this, and that. Like, or at least the ones I personally experienced, the guys I've met at festivals that are really into the acoustic jazz side of stuff, where they're playing like mandolin or guitar or whatever, or upright bass. Really, upright bass is kind of like the key to all of that, right?
Absolutely
like
essential.
If you don't have the upright bass, like walking, doing certain lines and stuff, it kind of doesn't make sense for the other instruments, right? So it's just really cool seeing how like that mentality kind of plays along with these guys, dude. Like they're like, oh, cool, we're gonna play in every genre at once.
Yeah, I think what we're forgetting as well is a lot of what makes, like, I find the majority of this album to be super catchy and like super easy to sing along to, and I think that's from
for
a lot of their
concept album.
But
100%.
a lot of their vocal melodies, I reckon they're coming from like pop music. There's a good injection of like pop melodies in there, and that's what's keeping it so like catchy. You sing along, click your fingers.
100%. And also too, man, with their vocals, what was really impressive to me was that you had them like singing like back and forth. And
there's a couple of tracks that have a good like call and response thing going on.
I love that.
And then on top of that,
absolutely love that in any music I've ever listened to, where you have two singers that know how to work together.
Yep.
Like, it's so much ego involved with being a lead musician or a singer or any of that stuff. When you have two guys that are like, all right, fuck that, let's sing together.
So I met these guys. Oh God, it must have been like 8 or 9 years ago. That's how I discovered them. They were touring in Kilkenny, where I'm from, and they played like this album and a couple of their other tracks, and it was like fucking €5 or €10 to get in. There was like 60 people there, and I was like, what is going on here? And it was in this little tiny theater that I played in myself like once a month, and I chatted to them all afterwards. They're super chilled out guys, super easygoing, and there's definitely, I didn't detect a hint of ego off any of them.
Well, like, and
a little eccentricity perhaps, but
definitely
no ego.
But that's the thing, is like you almost have to have ego death to do an album like this. Like, there's no way, right? But it's so crazy to me that like a lot of the string bands, the American string bands, or like even with Pokey Lafarge, right, the next album, like that style of music, a lot of times your first like big tours are like going to Europe, going to Ireland, going to England. Like, that's so strange to me growing up in that style of music. I've even had people tell me, they're like, oh, your stuff would sell over there better than here.
There's definitely, and like I'm saying, in Kilkenny where I'm from, there's a big demand for like Americana folk and blues from America, obviously. We do a whole festival for it every year around May, and it's a big draw. I call it Double Denim Weekend. The whole town is just flooded with double denim and guys carrying double basses on the rack, and it's great fun. But I think
amazing,
it's easier anyway, maybe not financially, but musically and critically, for a very small time American musician to go to Ireland or England or Germany, where people will just be like, there's some American lad playing here tonight. Let's go see him.
Well, it's almost like it adds some legitimacy to the musician from America, right? Like, if you hear someone,
I'm a traveling vagabond. Here I am in rural Germany.
Exactly. And like that's something that's always like, I've met bluegrass bands. I met a band one time that was from Czechoslovakia that sang.
That's not a country anymore, DJ. That's 2 countries now.
Excuse me. They sang bluegrass songs in Czech, though. That's what messed me up. And so that was my first realization. It's like, oh, this music isn't just American anymore, or that folk string band music. It's been around forever, and like, that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you about this. And it's so cool that you picked this type of album. We can kind of focus on that too, the appeal of this style of music over there, because it kind of all it's all from there. It's all like the origination of the music comes from Ireland.
I mean, or from somewhere.
Yeah.
But I mean, America's a young country, but even in the time it's been around, has managed to give us jazz and hip hop, which are distinctly American art forms, but have now.
I'd say bluegrass is very distinctly American.
Absolutely, bluegrass
American
as well. But bluegrass is kind of like an evolution from like Irish trad, and Scottish trad.
And you have a lot of like Irish influences on a lot of different stuff. I mean, I don't know how many reels I actually learned on the mandolin.
Yeah, but then jazz came along, and it's like, oh, these aren't normal chords. Like, I don't know where that came from, but I'm glad it exists.
Yeah.
But I think even super American music forms like bluegrass and jazz and hip hop are super enjoyable and accessible to everyone else on the planet. Like, you ever listen to Russian rap? It's good, man. You want real gangster rap, you listen to Russians.
Yeah, seriously, like actual gangsters. You said something to me one time about how American music influenced Europe, or like at least your experience, where you're like you have heard just like some of the more deeper funk cuts that like some of the more deeper funk music that
I am not a funk maestro by any standards, but I know a couple of songs.
You know some stuff though, dude. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I delve into all types of genres and stuff, and I feel like you're a person that I've met in my life. I'm like, damn, he knows just as much, if not more, music than I do, and I try to find shit. You know what I mean? Like, I go out of my way to find different styles of music. And every time we have a discussion about music, you're always like, hey, check this out. Hey, check this. And I'm like, shit. Yet I enjoy that, man. Like we're if that's something that really interests me, I'm only going to learn more by finding someone else who knows as much as I do, right?
Yeah, there's very few genres I don't like. Modern American country is one of them. Opera is another, and musical theater songs generally really get under my skin. They're super annoying.
I guess my curiosity comes from like, how did that develop? Like in Ireland, I'm curious. I'm a country boy from Virginia. I don't understand how like the appeal of like you guys. You've shown me a lot of European pop and a lot of European music that I'm like just now coming onto. I'm like, oh shit, this is like the French funk band you're showing me. All this stuff, right?
Breakbot.
Yeah.
So
good. It's like it's interesting to me. It's very interesting to me to the appeal of American music.
Yeah, it's weird as well. Like, I know we're kind of straying from talking about these albums, but to go down this road, when I was growing up, like fucking Irish traditional music and stuff like that, it was just like something you didn't like. For me personally, anyway, it was just like, hey, here's the fucking old timers playing the old timey tunes. And as you get older, you're like, actually, hold on, this shit kind of bangs a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think because Ireland and the UK are such, like, we're English-speaking countries, so we're very gratefully influenced by America. And I think as the American music industry boomed, that definitely bled into Ireland and England. I mean, rock and roll in the 60s came to Ireland, but it came about 20 years too late. But, and with like Northern Soul in England, that wouldn't happen if it wasn't for Detroit in America doing Motown. And it all just kind of got convoluted somewhere on the way. So yeah, and plus, and it kind of annoys me a bit, but I'm also guilty of it myself when I'm singing, is that like Irish and English musicians will often, like, when they sing, have like an American twang in their voice. I don't know what it is. I think it's because we grow up listening to music.
Have you heard me sing? You want to talk about
yeah,
twang?
Okay, no, it's not that extreme, but
I'm just messing with you.
But it's like there's very few people in Ireland anyway singing in like their true accent, and there's one guy who's doing the rounds at the moment. I won't name him because I think he's fucking terrible, but he sings in his truest accent, and it is awful. It is absolutely awful.
Might be a reason for that, right?
Yeah, but he's super popular. He's like a young dude, and he's doing like Irish trad, but he sings in the most god awful Kerry accent I've ever heard, and fuck that guy. But then there's other musicians I like that sing in like their truest, like thickest Dublin accent, and it's super off-putting to the vast majority of people, and I fucking love them. Yeah. And anytime like he does a show, it's like a religious experience for the fans. I don't know what it is.
I feel that way with certain artists as well from the bluegrass side, when they have a certain like bluegrass alt country, not necessarily pop country. There's certain guys like that are on the scene that I'm like, I can relate with that. To pivot back to the albums, I want to talk about some of the tracks I liked or had thoughts about, really. And
I imagine there's a lot of thoughts.
Lots of thoughts, man.
This is an album that's definitely like on some sort of Adderall or stimulant.
Yeah, dude, it's on something.
It's like a windy road. This one.
The first song to me, I love Yellow Lines, dude. I love that song. There's a line in it and I'm not, I don't like to pick out like long pieces of the lyrics, but one little like hook or something catches me. And the Knickerbockers stop and smoke their bowls. That's my favorite line, dude.
Yeah, that's a good one.
You don't, Knickerbockers is so many syllables. To fit that into a line, it was cool. And then I've heard of,
there's a couple of different like smoking weed references throughout this album, which it kind of takes you from left field. You're like, wait, hold on, what?
A second.
These are old timey ragtime gentlemen.
Yeah, dude. Well, they were smoking weed too. But it was cool because to me, I knew what I had heard the term Knickerbocker before, but I actually looked up the definition, so I know.
Pants, isn't it?
It's New York, the original Dutch people that moved to New York.
Huh.
Yeah, the New York state, the immigrants that were from the Dutch immigrants.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
I always thought it was something to do with the pants.
No, that's what they called those people.
But like the New York Knicks, that is because of Knickerbockers.
Well, the Knicks, that's how I know what a Knickerbocker is, because that's technically what the New York Knicks name is. It's the New York Knickerbockers. So I had heard the term before, and I figured it was something to do with the state. But then when I looked it up, I was like, it's the Dutch immigrants. That makes sense. Cool.
Pesky
Anyways,
Dutch.
The next thing, man, I kind of ordered these kind of similar to the track listing, so I'm just going down to the next one.
That's a good way to do it, especially with an album that's like, it's got a clear defined path.
Yeah, Mary. The beatboxing blues beginning to that, like the beatboxing into just the harmonica, it's so fucking funky. It's outrageous, man. How the beatboxing in particular, like last episode I had on a friend of mine who is a beatboxer, and I sent this track to him, and he was like, hey man, we could do this. Like it's funny to see like stuff that's the whole idea of being influential, right? Like I get inspired in the moment, and then you influence me to do something later that is similar to what you're doing. I think as musicians, we get caught up in our own ego thinking that we created something, and really like it's like cooking. Like you don't create salt or pepper. Like you're not the first person to put red pepper in something.
And these guys, the Wiyos, I mean, they're standing on the shoulders of giants. We
all are, right? Well, everyone is.
But I mean, what they've done here isn't done anything like remarkably new. They haven't invented a new type of music or anything. But they've taken the best bits of a little bit of everything.
I watched it
and assembled it themselves into something new. And I think that's definitely commendable.
I watched a Victor Wooten documentary, Victor Wooten's video on YouTube, and he was talking about like that sound out of context doesn't make sense, but when you put it into a rhythmic context, it makes sense. So that was something that I took away, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna listen to music differently. Like if it's a weird or unique sound that they're using to create percussion or to create some type of ambiance,
I don't know if you noticed, but there's one track, I forget which one it is on that album, where some of the percussion is literally just a dude going
yeah
just like weird breathing, and
it's amazing because again, like Victor said, out of context you'd be like, that's not musical, that doesn't make any sense. But you can take any tone or really any sound and turn it into music. Man, I really, it's awesome because these two things are kind of happening simultaneously. I've really gotten into Victor Wooten as a teacher. He does a lot of like TED Talks and a lot of like speaking on the subject about it being language, music being a language. And then hearing this album, it was like, oh, these guys really understand that. They're using everything at their disposal. They're taking every instrument. They're using anything. Like that one guy on the documentary, he was like, they need something, and I'm like, yeah, I'm your guy. Yeah. Like I resonate with that so much, dude, because I've always wanted to be, hey, what instrument do we need? And then
it cuts to a shot of him like playing banjo, and he's clearly not very good at banjo, but he's giving it his best, and he does exactly what he needs to do for that context.
He plays the right notes, man. He plays the right notes. You can't be wrong if you're playing the right notes. So that's the whole deal, I wanted to I wanted to say something about this next song. I wasn't necessarily like a fan of this song, but
is it Mama?
Yeah,
Mama is an awful song.
No, it's
theater. It's absolute theater.
What caught me is it should be in a Tim Burton film.
Yeah, it's so unnerving, and I think that's the point. I mean, the chorus of it is literally just the words "very strange, very strange,"
I'm sure that's what they were going for,
yeah.
Right? But to me, it was like, if this isn't like in Nightmare Before Christmas, I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, it's a super weird track. I skip it every time. I mean, when I was revisiting this album to talk about it with you, I bared with it. Like I listened to it twice, and I was like, "Fuck."
That's
this
the whole.
song.
That's the whole thing about listening to an album. Like if it was on vinyl and not being able to skip the track, that we or I don't fully comprehend from past generations. Like just like imagining if this came out on vinyl and we had to just listen to it and shit. You know what I mean?
I mean, if you were like chilling with your boys and like smoking a few joints or drinking a few beers or whatever, and like, hey man, listen to this album. Then that track came on, you'd just be all so. It's such a vibe killer.
Yeah, it's like you're going to the carnival or something.
That is it though. It is that like carnival sound big time. But it's a carnival that like it's a little rusty. The carnies, they might be on meth. That roller coaster is like one loose bolt away from a disaster.
Hey, those carnies put that roller coaster together.
Yeah,
dude.
yeah.
So what do you expect?
I've been getting out of there. Like the prize for like shooting the ducks is like a human skull.
Oh my gosh, yes. So the next song I loved on there, so of course with these like concept albums, like when you have anything that like they're doing multiple different genres throughout a song, there'll be parts of the song that you like more than other parts.
Oh,
right?
big time.
Scarecrow 2, we were talking about this earlier, about 1:30 in, which I don't ever timestamp stuff. I don't ever go, I need this exact moment.
Yeah, you kind of have to with these guys.
I heard that and I was like, man, I have to capture exactly where that is so other people go and listen to it and kind of pay attention at that moment, because there's a guitar bridge there that is very out of the blue and very like, man, it's so. When you hear people who are taking chances and taking and not playing by the rules, as a fellow musician, I look at, I don't have the right to, but I look at all of us as peers, right? So I'm looking at that going, man, that's really cool. And it is very inspiring because what's interesting to me throughout my life, I play instinctually because I just hear things and I play, right? But really, I'm playing stuff I've already listened to in the past. So that's why I like to listen to a lot of jazz. At this point in my life, I like to listen to a lot of George Benson and stuff, right? Because I hear him, and there's something in jazz about quoting, right? Like how if you took the next couple of words that I'm about to say and you quoted that and you said it the exact same cadence that I said it, is similar to how jazz musicians quote other jazz musicians. And actually, in the next song, Home, there's a very heavy Chet Atkins quote where it's Mr. Sandman. Mr. Sandman was like one of his big, it was Yankee Stomp, and then Mr. Sandman was one of his like first instrumental guitar tracks that was like super big for him. And he is Mr. Guitar. Like he quoted.
And I know the little break you're talking about, and I definitely can hear that too. It's maybe
not, it's tonnage.
It's
or
not
whatever.
in your face, but it's like, hey, that sounds like this.
Yes.
There's a couple of other moments on that album as well. Oh God, is it Mother Witch perhaps?
Yeah.
But it has a distinct like stabbing organ that really, really sounds like "That's Life" by Frank Sinatra.
Yes.
I could have the song wrong, but there's at one point there's that. Yeah.
I mean, to me that's the most interesting part about it, because with all music, what I've realized is just you peel back more layers. The more you know, the more you peel back, and you're like, oh man, like nobody knows anything. We're just stealing from everybody else. If you play something and I'm good enough to pick it up, is that stealing?
I don't know, man. They say imitation is the best form of flattery.
Exactly. And I think that's where the ego death comes from, right? Is that you realize like, oh, we're just imitating each other. I don't have ownership over this music. Right? You do at some point, you creatively do, right? But if you play like 4 notes on a guitar, do you own that? So it's kind of like that. I think like really elite musicians get to that point and they're like, all right, cool. We're just going to be creative at this point.
Speaking of do you own that, some dude recently, completely off topic, but he made an AI to map out millions and millions of 7-note melodies, unique melodies that he then legally owned, just as kind of an experiment to see like how the legal system would deal with that. But there's only so many combinations of notes you can do.
Yeah, there's only 12.
Yep. Which does leave it open for like millions of different combinations. But eventually,
but if you own every 7-note combination there is, like how
so that was his thing. Obviously, he wasn't going to try and sue anyone, but he just wanted to say, I own all this now.
Yeah. That's wild, dude. Well, I really enjoyed this album. Is there anything else you want to talk about the Wiyos before we pivot?
Oh, shit, man. There's so much to kind of unpack with this album in particular. When you go back to the earlier stuff, it's totally different. The earlier stuff is a lot like what you've sent to me with Pokey Lafarge. I just think this album is just like this weird diamond of insanity and musicianship that is very much underrated and unheard of.
Yeah, these guys have, I think, a little over 3,000 followers, or 3,000 monthly listeners on Spotify.
And you know, in the past month that we're like 500 of them.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. The Wiyo's Twist documentary is only 9.8 thousand views on like 10,000 views on YouTube. Like, these guys
In
are
8
relatively for 8 years. These guys are relatively unknown, and for the musical ability of these guys, to me is almost like disrespectful.
Oh, it's nuts. Yeah, I want to shout out. I want to shout out my buddy Alan, because he was the one that texted me one day and was like, "Hey, this weird American band is playing in the pub tomorrow night. Do you want to go?" And I was like, "Yeah, fuck it. Yeah,
let's go."
And I've had that album ever since, and I thought it would be a good one to throw at you, because I've been listening to your podcast, and it's like people are throwing good albums at you, but I wanted to kind of be a bit of a dick and just throw you something like super obscure and weird, and
I'm a weird musician myself, dude. So it's really cool to have that aspect of it, right? Like, I don't just want to listen to albums I've listened to before. I want to listen to new stuff. That's kind of.
I mean, if I sent you a Johnny Cash album, you'd listen to it and be like, "Yeah, it's a Johnny Cash album. It sounds like Johnny Cash." You know,
there's not a lot I can talk about.
Yeah.
The thing about listening to, also, you said it best. We go to live shows. We find that band that nobody else knows about, and then you're their like best PR person in the world. And what's so cool is that word of mouth PR is kind of like, it's probably, to me, the most inspiring thing as a musician. I've had a small amount of that, where I've had like a couple people tell other couple people to come see us play, and I'm like, man, you thought enough. Like, dude, I'm drinking a few beers and playing mandolin. Like, you thought enough of that to tell somebody to come see. So for us, the appreciation that we have for this album, the best thing we can do is tell people to go listen to the damn thing.
Big time.
Which is like so cool, man, because then you become not only their fan, but their advocate.
Their proselytizer, you know,
exactly,
their preacher.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we all need to do, you know, like, we need right now, you know, there's not a lot going on. What else can we do but listen to music and clean your apartment?
Yeah, also, we probably should have said at the start, don't listen to this before you listen to the album.
Yeah.
Because the odds are, if you're listening to this, you haven't heard this album. And that's not me being like a big hipster, like, oh man, it's kind of underground. No, it objectively is. Like, these guys are like, I don't know why, but they're not as big as they should be.
They're not as big as they should be.
It's a crazy album.
Unfortunately, this probably won't
maybe
change
stick that in your intro before you start the episode.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this probably won't help them, but so much. But
hey, man, every person helps.
Every person helps. And, you know, especially for me personally, listening to this is a big statement. I really think these guys are some possibly musical geniuses, like doing what they just did with that album, like listening to
these are some big balled music, man.
Yeah, dude, these guys take that, like, you miss every shot you don't take. They took the fucking shot, dude. And to me, it was very like admirable, and listening to it, I'm like blown away. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to this album for years.
So yeah, now I'm remembering little bits of things now that I wanted to talk about. There are elements in this album where it, you know, obviously basically every song changes, whether it changes in like 20 seconds to go from like rockabilly into like salsa, or whether it changes to go from like straight up traditional rock and roll and blues into like a weird, like not classical, but like old-timey ragtime breakdown. But there's a couple of tracks that break down into what I can only describe as the Beatles. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
some
60s
of their
organ, 60s
with
vibe,
these beautiful harmonies. And I was just listening to their most recent release, which I think was from last year or 2 years ago, and it sounds completely different. It's very much like Strawberry Fields Forever. This is a Beatles album almost, even down to their album art. It looks like that. So these guys are constantly changing, but I think this is just. I mean, like I said, I don't think this is a masterpiece, but my God, it could be their magnum opus, you know, which I guess means masterpiece, but you know what I mean. This is the one you put up and you say, all right, this is us.
Also, too, they took a lot of chances. So the chances they took, you know, we can sit here and say they were right or wrong or whatever, but listening to it objectively, listening to the album objectively, and you're like, man, this is a couple of guys. This isn't like 20 people doing this album. This is like a couple of guys, man. Like that's impressive.
Yeah, it's like when I saw them live, it was 5 dudes, but I think for the majority of the recording, you're looking at, 3 or 4, maybe 5. I think and I could be wrong, but the dude in the documentary that's producing is also the piano player when I saw them live. But historically they're a three-piece.
Man, that is crazy.
Yeah, and they're a three-piece that's gone through a lot of different members. So I don't know if the lineup is the same as it was back then. I'm sure the two vocalist guys are still there. Yeah, and Sauerkraut Seth on the bass.
I think they were mostly the songwriters for everything. Too,
big time.
That. Well, let's pivot. The next album I picked, I had to do what I had to do here. I had to pick one genre, and one of the genres that I picked was obviously the most prevalent in what they do, the string.
Yeah, I think you might have played it a bit too safe on that.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
I mean, you
tried to bounce off like a similar thing. You could have gone completely left field. You could have given me like a Slayer album, and I still would have listened to it.
You know, I wanted to create. I wanted to be a similar angle, and that's as close as I could get, and it also something that I knew.
Yeah. Also, in fairness, it's hard to compare like Slayer to the Wyos. Good call.
I wanted to do something also that I knew that I was familiar with. So that's the hardest thing is that a lot of times or eventually I'm going to get to the point where I'm going to have to pull up albums that I don't know. So this was something where I'm like, all right, this is something I'm getting these vibes from the Wyos. The album I'm talking about is the self-titled album by Pokey Lafarge.
Is it Lafarge or Laforge?
Lafarge. I don't know. I'm country, dude. I'm from Virginia. I'll get it.
it.
So actually, Pokey's name is Andrew Heisler, and it's Andrew Heisler in the South City 3. So Pokey Lafarge in the South City 3. Mm-hmm. You have Adam Hoskins on guitar, Joey Glenn on bass, Ryan Cohen on harmonica, Chloe and TJ Mueller on clarinet and trumpet and all that stuff. That comes in later. But the thing that I like about Pokey is that, stage name Pokey. I love the time period stuff. There's some thought to. I don't think music is gonna ever die at this point. There's so much recorded material out there that you can draw from, you can listen to, that someone will get inspired to play 1920s jazz at some point, right?
But I mean, trends happen, and like older music does go out of style. Right. And for a younger musician to pick up the mantle and say, you know what, I want to be a 1930s traveling fucking Great Depression ragtime
and there's
Americana dude.
There's something to him realizing what he's good at, right? Like, to me, his vocals, I've listened to them in other stuff, and his vocals are very unique in that aspect.
And I will say, just off the bat, he is very good at what he does. I really enjoyed this album, listening to it. I think I caught, again, going back to the Rhythm and Roots Festival in Kilkenny, I'm pretty sure I caught like the last 5 or 10 minutes of his gig years ago there. Mm-hmm. He's very good, man, but I've found that it's kind of like listening to music in black and white. Mm-hmm. It's this throwback from a forgotten day, and it's very good, and it's super enjoyable. The musicianship is very good, and I tried to sit down and listen to the album as many times as I could, but after like 2.5, 3 times, I was just like, I need a break from this.
Dude, that's with every type of, for me, every type of string band, anything like that. Like, honestly, any genre, there's a point where you wear yourself out.
Now, he does shake things up a bit, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. There are some certain big-time standout tracks for me on this record that will definitely be going onto my playlists.
Well, really, one thing to me that I've seen him do some prominent gigs in Bristol. I've seen him on YouTube videos do some prominent gigs in Bristol. But one thing I wanted to kind of tie into this, and this is an angle you don't know about, which is really cool. I get to tie this in.
Oh, shit.
The first album, The Wyos, is tied into the Wizard of Oz. And the one cool thing about Pokey is recently I watched a movie on Netflix. He is actually in The Devil All the Time on Netflix right now. He's
I saw that film. It's the most depressing, miserable film I've ever seen.
He's this character in The Devil All the Time. He's a guy.
Oh shit!
Yes, and so that was really cool for me. It was like it was a movie angle as well that he's actually like. Because
I knew he was an actor as well, and I watched that film.
I think he's new to the whole like bigger roles.
I watched all like 2.5, 3 hours of that god awful, miserable movie. I really enjoyed it. I think it's a good
movie.
I think it's a very good piece of cinema,
dude.
but I am not going to be rushing out. I am not going to be rushing out to watch that again.
It's fucked up.
Don't make this turn into a movie podcast, because I will go on about it. But
it was an interesting angle for me. It was like I just recently watched that movie, and
he was the dude from Harry Potter's brother.
Was he?
Yeah.
Oh no, his brothers. Yeah.
His brother is that like guy that
Yes,
pours all the
yes,
spiders on him.
Yeah, he's his crippled brother. Yeah, that just sits in the car and basically he plays guitar in the show. He plays guitar in a wheelchair.
My God.
Yeah, so it was a thing where I recently watched that, and me and my girlfriend are sitting there watching the show, and I'm like, "That's Pokey Lafarge." Who the fuck is that?
Wait till I tell you about Pokey Lafarge.
And then we did this. So I don't know if he was just on my brain, like recently on my brain, where I was like, the string band, I got to go with Pokey. Or what tied it in, but it was a really cool tie-in. Also, too, man, the dude does some really cool gigs, man. He does like the Bristol Rhythm and Roots, and like so. There's some out in Bristol, Virginia, is technically, or they claim to be the birthplace of country music and Appalachian music. And
it's a pretty hefty claim.
Yeah, they got some rights to it. But I do think that they put on an excellent festival every year where they bring in not only bluegrass but string band,
old men
country,
dancing on cardboard,
everything, everything, dude. And they shut down the downtown, and I've been a couple times, and it's awesome, man. And I've seen Pokey play some stuff digitally where he was at those festivals in Bristol at the radio station and such. And his dedication.
What a strange way to say I watched it on YouTube.
Yeah, no, right?
I saw him play digitally.
Thank you. It's funny because like you were saying, his dedication to
this
that
persona
style of music. We're like jazz. We're gonna be string band, then venture into a little jazz because we have the trumpet and clarinet. We're gonna do a couple different things. To me, Central Time.
I think it's a great first track, especially for someone I've
banger,
never.
Dude, right off the bat.
I mean, I think I saw him play live, like I said, for like one or two songs, and I was like, it's pretty good. But it fits the theme of that festival, so I was like, it's an American dude doing American stuff. Central Time's a great opening track for this album, especially for a self-titled album.
I'm pretty sure that was my introduction to Pokey.
Do you know what label this is on?
Third Man Records.
Yeah, which is Jack White's label, which is all about like promoting like American music in an American style. Which was something I was going
to tie into because it's like, Jack White, hate him or love him, man, but he's done more for American music than anybody else in his time period.
That's a very bold statement.
I don't know, man.
Like, I don't think many people hate Jack White. I think some people might think he looks like kind of weird. I think some people
dislike his music or dislike his guitar playing because he's kind of like. I love his guitar playing, but I've heard. I mean,
the Icky Thump album was pretty weird, but overall, man, Jack White's been killing it in everything he does.
In that time period, he's pretty iconic for a guitar player. But Pokey does a lot of different shit. To me, What the Rain Will Bring is like one of the most beautiful jazz songs.
Very good, and that's something I found with this album. Like in terms of themes, overall, it's pretty simple in the lyrical themes, which is a statement to the style of music he plays. It's like sweet love ballads.
Do what you do good.
I'm a traveling country boy. I've got sweet love ballads. Sometimes he goes a bit off the rails on that. There's some lines where it goes real dark, real quick, and I don't know if you want to go into those now or a bit later.
But so just to kind of caveat on that. There's an idea that a lot of American folk music isn't positive. A lot of it's murder ballads and a lot of
music isn't positive. True. I mean, anyone can write a happy song. It's the ones
that
really explore the darkness of your psyche that are the masterpieces.
Most of it isn't about happy times and smiles and rainbows and unicorns. So I don't condemn the negative aspect, but I do hear it. And I'm like,
no, I don't condemn it at all. I think it's refreshing, but it's like refreshing. He's very conservative with it. It's overall, I'd say like 90% of this album is like, this is what you expect to hear. It's like My Kentucky May.
I love that song.
Yeah, great song. It's like I don't need East Coast time. I don't need West Coast time. I'm a Midwest boy. I'm on Central time. Yeah. All this stuff, and it's like really what you expect out of it, and he's like a master of his craft in that way. To especially go back to the olden days of music in black and white.
And credit to Jack White or whoever's running Third Man Records to give them creative freedom to do that, because that's a big thing for me personally. Is like I would love to hear more artists get, here's your intro album, here's your self-titled album. Yeah. Do you? You know what I mean? Like
it's like I like what you do. Here's some money. Keep doing what you do, but with more money.
And I feel like that's really what he capped, because you got to think this is his self-titled album. This has to be if he's not going to take, he's going to take a couple chances, but if he's going to do what he's going to do, he's got to be true to who
and this
he
was
is,
the first one on that label as well, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, I respect the shit out of this album. I like this album a lot. The Kentucky May, which you brought up, it's like ragtime into a big band song with the trumpet and the clarinet and shit, and like.
Yeah, so I'm looking at my notes here, and what I have straight off the bat is just 2 words: jazz chords. It's definite, like, it's all these like diminished chords and sevens and nineses, and
really
I don't know what I'm
movements
talking about when it comes to jazz, but I know what I play on guitar, and like normal, like straight up just normal minors and normal majors and like the odd 7 or whatever, and like these chords are very much like, oh, this boy knows jazz.
Yeah. From what I understand, it's just transitionary between the chords.
Yeah, why play one chord for 4 bars when you can play 12?
Yeah.
But this was it's a really sweet love song, and he uses the trumpet and clarinet sparingly in this album. Maybe like 3 or 4 tracks have the trumpet and clarinet, and it definitely, we're kind of talking midway point of the album, and they make a really, really welcome return here, along with electric guitar, which is also used very, very sparingly in this record.
There's something to that. There's something to that thought
also,
process.
it's much more of a vocal forward song in terms of how it's mixed and produced. The instruments are super subdued. Like, you have the muffled trumpet on that track, but it's like you got to pay attention to hear it almost.
I'm sure he's got the like.
Oh, he's got the muffled, but like everything, like the guitar, the percussion, the trumpet, and the clarinet, they're real low key, and it's like this is my love ballad where my voice is the most important thing. Whereas in the other songs, it's like, all right, this is a whole unit, this is a package. Whereas that song, it's like, all right, let's take it down.
I mean,
I'm gonna sing about my sweet Kentucky May.
What's wild about that song is I texted a guy the other night and was like, man, if we could make this an actual bluegrass song, like more. Take what he's doing and push it more to the acoustic bluegrass side of things, it would be a hell of a song. It's a hell of a song already, but just for that genre of music, it's so cool with bluegrass. You can pull from everywhere, and you can pull from country, you can pull from wherever, and you can make it a bluegrass song, and a lot of people
you
like
just gotta speed it up and make it way more ADHD.
Sometimes there are some
200 beats per minute. Let's go, boys.
There are there are some other people who do a lot of like more tasteful stuff that isn't sped up in a studio.
Hey, I'm not knocking bluegrass at all. I'm just, it is a very fast, like intense type of music.
It is. It very much is, and I think that is because of the simplicity to it. There is complexity to it, but a lot of times there's simplicity to it, so a lot 'of people want to make you play it.
I don't know, DJ. It sounds
60 beats a second.
Sounds pretty complicated to me. I could never play bluegrass.
If you're doing it at 80 as opposed to 160, it's a lot more simple than it is at,
not even timing, man. Just how many notes can we possibly squeeze into a bar?
Yeah, it's a lot.
Even if I was playing guitar on a bluegrass track, my right hand would just be worn out just from strumming.
There is some thought to that as well. Again, we all stand on musicians from the past. So what's really cool about the era of bluegrass right now is that, or string band music for that example, is that like there's tons of examples of how to do this at this point, to where we can kind of pick and choose. Like I feel very, very lucky in that aspect to like I can pick and choose who I want to listen to, who I want to be influenced by, who I want to draw from, and get it instantly. And not even think about, who do you want to look up? George Benson, boom, I pull it up. Who you want to look up? Boom, I can literally pull it up. I can listen to it. I can experience it. I can come, and see, the thing with me with music is that I don't listen to something once and go, okay, cool, I listened to that. I listen to it, and then a couple months down the road, like the Wiyo's album, I'm going to, 3-4 months from now, I'm going to listen to it again and go, damn, I didn't pick that up. I didn't hear that. That is why we love music. It's because you might have a catchy song or whatever, but like the real music heads or the real musicians or the real people who really like nerd out about it, like myself, it's got to be something there every time you listen to it. You know what I mean? It's got to be something you're picking up. It may be, you may have the same feeling that you previously had. It may be a duplicate feeling, but you got to pick up something. There's been albums I listened to where I'm just like, man, this is the funkiest shit I've ever listened to. And I've listened to it 100 times. You know what I mean? Like, I've heard it. I know what I'm listening to, but I just love certain phrases and certain way cadences certain musicians have that I'm wilding out about. One quick thing, Pokey does have a super, super comedic side.
Yeah.
Bow-legged woman.
Bow-legged woman was a good one.
That's like the biggest representation of him trying to be, fun, cute and funny, and not like
It's also one of my personal highlights from the album.
Yeah?
Even without the lyrics, it's rock and roll.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
it's rock and roll
Acoustic rock and roll,
with like that kind of Americana like ragtime band, but it is absolutely rock and roll. There is like very distinct Elvis influences in it. There is vocals and bass going together like that was a terrible description. You got to listen to the track, but all I could hear at certain parts of that was Elvis.
You're exactly right, and that's something that I did not pick up until now. It's almost how he dresses, how he looks. Everything is almost Elvis, but playing string band.
Yeah,
like Elvis, but playing acoustic music. Damn, dude, that's a really good reference.
Yeah,
man.
It's. I think that's one of the better tracks on the album, hands down. Definitely one that I could stick on a playlist and listen to over and over again.
Hell yeah.
Some of the tracks are not like that for me. The Devil Ain't Lazy is not one of my favorites.
Devil Ain't Lazy, no siree.
Yeah, man, that's the entire song for 3 minutes. The devil is bad.
That's what's funny is he does a lot of biblical references and stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, but that comes with the territory.
The territory. Yeah.
However, it is interesting. I have written down on my notes that it's ADHD bass and harmonica working together because it's super fast, like walking bass. Like, devil ain't lazy.
You should watch some YouTube videos of those two dudes playing together because Pokey is his persona and he has like the thing going on, right? But those two dudes are like, man, some of them more, I don't want to say professional musicians, but just like have their shit together.
Yeah.
Just like, it's really hard when you're an accompaniment musician to remember every single thing you're supposed to do when this guy writes a song. You know what I mean? For me personally, I try really, really hard, but that is the most, like, it's almost, it gets to a level to where I have to like personally know you almost to learn your songs, right? So if you write a song and you want me to play all the nuances of the song, we have to practice that thing for like 6 months, dude. So like to see these guys, how they operate on stage, it's like a unit. They operate, and we'll watch a video.
Each of those individual players needs to have an expert level knowledge on the genre that they're playing. Because what Pokey does is like it's nothing new. That's the point. It's music from a bygone time. So the players need to be very, very, very well versed in that, what's expected from them, and what they need to sound like at each specific beat in the song.
It's something to record that. It's another thing. There's live videos of them doing this out on YouTube and stuff.
You got to give it socks when you're playing that shit live.
Dude, they are so well oiled. They're like a machine, dude. They're just like, with some of the call and answer, that was another thing I wanted to bring up between Pokey and the
Wiyos. Yeah, there are definitely some similarities
with the vocals, how they have harmonies and stuff, but they have the call and answer. That's again, I fucking love that. I'm really a big nerd about that.
No, I mean it's cool.
I love vocals like that.
That's what makes like one of my favorite tracks on the Wiyos album is Mother Witch, and it's 100% call and response in the verses and the chorus. They come in together, do nice harmonies, but it's back to call and response.
Well, man,
with a megaphone. One dude is singing through a megaphone, and the other dude is singing through a harmonica mic on the Wiyos album. And it's like, this is cool. That's nice and distorted. I like that.
That's so crazy. Man, this has been really enjoyable to sit here and fucking bullshit about these albums. And
hey, I got one thing I wanted to talk about though, real quick. Close the Door. The second last song on the Pokey Lafarge album. That's a huge lyrical departure, and it's very refreshing. All the other songs are like, I love my girl, I love my city, except in Summer City Blues, where it's like, I hate my city because people are getting shot and the construction is ripping up the streets, so I want to get the fuck out of there. But overall, he loves the city, my home away from home. But Close the Door is a song about how fucked the American healthcare system is. And the lyrics are like, close the door, don't let the doctor in, lock the door. I wish when I was in hospital, I died in hospital instead of having to deal with this lifelong crippling debt of medical bills. And it's
which is so refreshing, but also too like I don't think he could have done that without Third Man. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know that any other record label would have allowed him to release that in the genre that he's in.
Well, I don't
right?
know. We might have to agree to disagree because that
Sure.
is like that style of music. This folk music is you sing about your life and you
That's
sing
very
about
true.
your thoughts. And like in this day and age, holy fuck, it's not like we got to stop the Vietnam War. It's like Jesus Christ, we need to like do something about the healthcare system.
It's very true.
And there's 2 other tracks as well. Not to keep cutting you off, but
good.
Day After Day.
The intro on that song. The intro on that song is a fucking sick.
But Day After Day and Summer City Blues, along with Close the Door, they are both very urban, modern lyrics.
Which is so cool with the style of music that he's doing. I think that for me, I hear where he's going with that, which is, I don't know if you've listened to any of his other stuff, but he does have more of a modern feel to his lyrics.
Yeah, I mean,
he keeps the same style of genre, but he has a more modern
Day
feel
After
to his
Day
lyrics.
is that old time music, but it's I hate working 9 to 5. I hate being stuck in rush hour traffic. I'm just hanging around the fucking water cooler, talking shite with everyone in the office. And it's the point of the song is I would literally be anywhere else than doing this right now. And preferably if that place was a tropical island, that would be
That'd be
ideal
great.
too. That would be ideal too. And the same with Summer City Blues, which he kind of contradicts himself a little bit because in Summer City Blues, he's talking about, I got to get the fuck out of Louisville, Kentucky. It's summer. People are shooting each other. There's sirens on the street. Everything's awful, which, the super modern urban lyrics. But then the last track is Home Away From Home, which is just like, wait till I tell you how much I love Louisville, Kentucky. And it's like, bro, 4 songs ago, you just said you hated the place. On the same album.
On the same album. That would be an interesting question for him personally. Be like, because...
Oh, is he here?
No,
Is it?
no.
Why,
But
why do I have a surprise guest for you?
Yeah, right. I would nerd out so hard to be like, hey man, do you realize you put that song after that song, right? You know what I mean? Like I would, and I feel like he would be.
But you see, he preambles it by saying it's only the summer he doesn't like in Louisville. Yes, you see, yes.
There you go.
He's fine in the spring, the autumn, and the winter, but the summer's a bit much.
Yeah.
In fairness, man, I don't like summer in the South, and we're a bit further north than Louisville, so I can't blame him for getting the fuck out of Louisville.
Well, dude, man, it's been fucking awesome talking to you about this. If we keep going, we'll do 2-3 hours about these albums, so we probably should wrap it up
That's
soon.
fair enough.
Would you like to say anything else about the...
No, I think overall, I think the Pokey Lafarge album was excellent. Really, I enjoyed it, but it's one of those ones that you need to be in the right mood for.
Yeah.
You need to want to listen to old timey music.
Hell yeah.
Whereas the Wyos, it's like a little bit
all over
old
the
timey,
place.
and it's a little bit salsa, it's a little bit hip hop, it's a little bit rockabilly, a little bit rock and roll.
Name a genre.
And it suffers from that as well because you can really get into a song and then 2 minutes later they completely change it. And there's some of the breakdowns I really don't like, and I'm just like, can you please bring back what the overture is, like what was at the start? I would like that.
That is a realization that we all have when we're listening to music, that we are at the will of the musician we're listening
Absolutely. And other than that, DJ, I just want to thank you for having me on, man.
Dude, love you,
been
dude.
fun.
Fuck yeah, man. Well, that's it, dude. I'm gonna cut this off.
All right, Godspeed. Hail Satan.